Don't plan to retire at 65. As a former pension fund CEO, I believe that's a mistake for most people in Europe. Let me tell you a story. 30 years ago, I was walking to school with my grandma, and suddenly her heart went crazy with arrhythmia. Of course, both of us got scared, and she was digging frantically through her handbag looking for her pills. And then she told me, "Well, Tommy, after I'm gone, take good care of your mother." My grandma was around 65, and she expected to pass away any day. Now, happily, we got another 25 years with her. But she spent a lot of those years expecting the end. And many years later, she told me, "Well, Tom, if I'd only known I would live this long, I would have learned languages. I would have tried new things. I would have lived differently." Now, when I was running a pension fund, I saw the same thing many times. People often told me, "There's no point planning for retirement. I'm not even going to live that long." But that is not what the numbers say. According to Our World in Data, 84% of men and 92% of women across the EU are expected to reach the age of 65. If you don't have massive health problems already, you will almost certainly live that long. And according to OECD data, in developed countries, people who do reach the age of 65 live another 19 and a half years on average. So that's almost 2 decades spent in retirement age for the average person. So yes, you should definitely plan for retirement. That's the good news. But now come 2 pieces of bad news. On average, if you're 65 and live in Europe, you can expect another 10 healthy life years. Now, in some countries, such as Norway or Sweden, it can be as much as 14 years. In poorer countries like Latvia or Slovakia, it could be just as little as 5 years. If you retire at the standard age of 65, that means you might only get a few active, healthy years to travel and enjoy your hobbies. So, if at all possible, I would aim to retire early. For example, if you could retire even just 5 years earlier, at age 60, that might, on average, add only 25% to the length of your overall retirement. But it could add as much as 50% or more to your healthy retirement years. And that would be a big deal, right? Okay, but we'll come back to this in a moment, because now we have to look at the second piece of bad news. When I started my career on Wall Street in America 18 years ago, I remember being amazed when I heard my 25-year-old colleagues talking about investing in their 401ks and retirement accounts. When I moved back home to Europe and started a pension fund, it was a different story. We found it incredibly hard to get anybody under 50 to care about saving for retirement. Here in Europe, we have this culture of expecting the government to take care of us in old age. And for many decades, that worked okay. But I'm sorry to disappoint you, those days are over. First, check out the size of government pensions today, okay? To measure this, we usually use the so-called pension replacement rate. Take the pension that you will receive after retiring and divide it by the income you will have before retiring. According to official EU statistics, the average pension replacement rate across Europe was 61% as of 2024, although in some countries like Spain and Italy it was much higher, and in others it was significantly lower. So, looking at these numbers, on average you could expect your income to fall by almost half when you retire. But that is today. Across Europe, there's a massive demographic transition that's happening. There are more and more old people and fewer young people. And that means fewer taxpayers to fund our future pensions. According to European Commission data, pension replacement rates are expected to go down in virtually every European country. And of course, in many countries, the pension age will have to go up, until we can only retire when we are too old to enjoy it in a healthy way. Some European countries, such as Denmark, have already decided to raise the retirement age to 70. So that's the second piece of bad news. We can't expect a good government pension at age 65. If you want a comfortable retirement, or if you would like to retire early, you will need money of your own. This is one of the key reasons why I became an investment educator, because here in Europe, we're heading for this huge pensions problem and we're not doing nearly enough to prepare for it. But the thing is, there is a lot that you can do to prepare. Okay, if you start taking action today, assuming you still have at least 5 to 10 years until you retire or longer, you can build up a significant amount of savings, which can make a big difference to your quality of life or even allow you to retire early. So, if you'd like to do that, based on my 18 years of financial experience, here are 5 principles that you should follow. We've already covered principle number 1. Don't expect the government to take care of you. Take charge of your own retirement planning. Principle number 2 is this. Starting today, spend less than you earn. I've lived on 1,000 euros a month and I've lived on 10,000 euros a month. And I can tell you for sure, there is no amount of income that you can't easily spend. Even many high-income people here in Europe live paycheck to paycheck. But I know families with children earning just a few thousand euros a month who still manage to save for retirement. If you commit to it, you can start saving for retirement today. But you may need to accept some compromises on where you live, what transport you take, and how often you eat out. Now, to understand the third principle, picture David. He's 50 years old, divorced, and the proud owner of a 40-foot yacht on which he still owes 75,000 euros. He's living what I call the DDB lifestyle, and it's exactly what you need to avoid if you want to build wealth for retirement. The first D is debt. You don't want to take payday loans. Don't buy a TV or renovate your home on credit. Avoid buying a car on credit if you can. The only kind of good debt maybe is a modest mortgage that you can easily afford. Second D, divorce. I know that this one is kind of hard to avoid, but it's a real wealth destroyer. And B, boats. But of course, I don't just mean boats. I mean any kind of expensive purchases that keep costing you over the years, like a yacht, a vacation home, any asset with ongoing maintenance costs. Okay, so the third principle is this. Avoid wealth-destroying mistakes. Avoid DDB. And then we get to principle number 4. Let me ask you this. If you save 1,000 euros today, would you rather have 1,000 euros or 4,000 euros in 20 years? Seems obvious, right? We would take the 4,000. But most Europeans actually make the first choice. That's because they just leave their savings sitting in the bank. If you invested 1,000 euros at 7% per year, in 20 years you would have 4,000. At 9% per year, it would be 5,600. For sure, in the short term, the stock market can be risky, but over a 20-year period, a diversified portfolio of global stocks has never lost money. So to me, this is a total no-brainer. If you're saving for retirement, you've got to be investing. That's principle number 4, invest your money. And now, principle number 5. I learned this painful lesson from so many sad experiences over my 18 years in the financial industry. Most people here in Europe, when they want to invest for retirement, they just go to their local bank. They say, I don't know what I'm doing, just take this money and invest it for me. But this causes 2 big problems. First, you get taken advantage of. You imagine that a fee of 1% per year or 2% per year is modest. But over your lifetime, this could cost you tens or even hundreds of thousands of euros in lost profits. And second, when you don't understand what's going on with your money, you stress out about your investments. And as soon as something scary happens, Donald Trump announces something crazy, a pandemic hits, the market crashes, well, you panic and you make emotional decisions that wreck your wealth. Now, the good news is that this is not that hard to avoid. You simply need to follow principle number 5, get educated about investing. Like my student Christoph, who said, my private banker offered to manage my portfolio at a cost of 0.7% per year. Tom's training taught me how to build a better portfolio with a one-time cost of 0.05% with no yearly fees. It's actually my mission in life to help people in Europe invest their money, including investing for retirement. I teach an approach called passive investing, where you use passive investments called ETFs and index funds to make your money grow while spending just a few hours per year. Maybe you've heard about ETFs. This is probably the most recommended investment type for beginning investors because it's simple to use, it has very low costs, and generally it gets great results for long-term investors. But when you're new to ETF investing, you can have many questions, such as what are the right ETFs or index funds to buy? Which investment app or brokerage do you trust? And how do you handle taxes? If you'd like me to help you with this, I've got a step-by-step training that explains everything. Just follow the first link in the description.